Hello, I'm Jamie Bulloch, and I'm going to read from my sample translation of Wolf Haas's Eigentum. This is a short work of autofiction. I suspect there's as much fiction in there as auto, in which the author stroke narrator pieces together his mother's life as she's lying on her deathbed. It's a literary novel, but it's also very, very funny. And I'm going to start reading from the very beginning of the book. 3 days before her death, she was almost 95 and no longer all there. My mother inquired about her parents.
"Where my people are now," she said.
When I didn't immediately get what she was saying, she was more specific.
"My mummy and daddy. I've no idea what it's called, where they are now, but maybe you could give them a bell on your mobile and let them know I'm fine."
I was hacked off. All these years, my mother had led me to believe that her life was awful. And now, 3 days before her death, she was giving me the news that she was fine. It had to be a mistake. We were the ones who weren't fine. It was something I'd got used to, having listened to the same broken record ever since the day I was born. Even in the amniotic sac, I'd been prepared for the notion that our life was awful. But now she was suddenly fine. The next day, I wondered whether to say that I'd called them. It might make her happy, so what was the point of sticking to the facts? I mean, I could simply say, they send their love back and they're fine too. Your parents are fine and your dead siblings are also fine. The youngest one, who was killed by a horse when he was a child, is in particularly good form. What the hell? She probably didn't have much longer to live. In fact, she died 2 days later. The lie would pass with her and no longer exist. I just had to make sure I didn't overplay it, or I'd be guilty of something else. I'd be accused of having made fun of her too. After all, everybody deserves a certain degree of respect, even those who might not notice if you don't show it. You can't say any old thing to those approaching a vegetative state, whose lights are going out, just because being with them is tedious. You mustn't tease people inferior to you. You mustn't make fun of the daft. You mustn't make fun of children, and you mustn't make fun of the disabled. Basically, you mustn't make fun of anyone, I'm afraid. Least of all your dying mother.
"Who did everything for you, do you hear that?
And who had
Such a difficult childhood.
how easy I'd had it by comparison. I didn't have to be
Put into care as an infant because of poverty and hardship.
When I was 10, I wasn't.
Packed off for good to work as a slave for a farmer in the neighbouring village.
I didn't have to.
Spend an hour wading through deep snow to school, look after cows in summer, and also patch up the socks of the farmer's 4 sons. They always wore white socks, see, with their short lederhosen, white knee socks. And these socks had a pattern, see, which was a bit damaged, and I had to work out that same pattern, restore it all the way down to the calf, and then use the beautiful, fine, white thread to knit the calf. Knitting with that fine white thread was such a lot of work, so precise, it had to look beautiful."
Now I have to knit together her life, from some inner compulsion. I'll be finished by the time of her funeral, and then I'll be rid of it, the memory and everything. A quick text, and then it's done. A text that takes its succour from being in a race with death. Only 2 more days. No time for fancy wording or self-censorship. Congratulations, a great idea. But that doesn't give me the right to tell her I've wrung them. They send their love back and say they're fine too. On the other hand, such a strict interpretation of the law is an obstacle to giving your fading mother a bit of happiness before she dies. Can't we see pulling someone's leg as the jolly cousin of putting an arm around them? Where exactly is the transition zone? Where is the line? Where are the border guards of good taste? It's possible to spend so long thinking about true love, you end up growing a wrinkly Hitler moustache. If I'm careful enough, I might be able to make her happy, but stop before I reach the threshold of mockery. I could simply say, they send lots of love back and they're fine. Full stop. What I mustn't do is get carried away and indulge in too much detail. So I can't say, your father's got a cold, but he's on the road to recovery. That would probably be disrespectful.